Good afternoon, fellow Texans and Patriots. This is Bill Zedler bringing you the Zedler Report. Another week. My friends, let me ask you this. Has this week been a great week or not? We have just moved and gotten a 9th U.S. Senator in the U.S. Senate with the defeat of Mary Landrieu. Hey, Josh, was that not a great night or not?
We just keep winning and winning and winning. What number does this put us at in the Senate?
54 Republicans, and that would make it 46 Democrats. That means that the majority leader will no longer be Harry Reid. We're going to finally have a Republican who is going to be the majority leader in the state and the U.S. Senate. And the great news is this. The time when Harry Reid can stall and refuse to hear some great legislation that's been coming over from the House is over. All we got to do is wait till January, I believe the 20th, is when the day with the official day that the Republicans will take over. And in essence, we will be able to pass bills out of the House, go into the Senate, and from now on, the Senate will not be ignoring that legislation coming from the House. So finally, we're going to have something, and it is time. Here's the thing, my friends. One of the things we need to remember is this. Okay, we've had a transformational election. It went not only from the U.S. House and the Senate, because we also picked up seats in the U.S. House, but we've also picked up lots of Senate and House seats in the House and Senate seats across the nation. We picked up some governors. The other thing is, in the Texas House, we picked up 3 seats. So, my friends, this was a tidal wave. And the reason for it was the American people standing up and saying, we are tired of Obama's policies. Remember what he said? He said his policies were on the ballot. Well, they sure were, and they lost big time. Now, the next thing it's come time for, my friends, is this. We must hold our elected officials accountable. Here's the thing. From a national perspective, here's what we need to do. We need to remember is this. What is it that all these people were running on? Well, they ran on 2 things. First and foremost, the repeal of Obamacare. We've got to hold our elected officials accountable and say, we expect you to act to move to repeal Obamacare. Because, my friends, let me tell you, it is absolutely killing the economy. That is one of the reasons it's like a boat anchor on the economy. And what we have is that small businesses are not hiring. We still got a slow recovery rate. Can you imagine what would be happening if we were growing at 5, 6, and 7%? That is what happened under Ronald Reagan. When we grew at that percentage, guess what? We wouldn't be graduating kids from college that can't get out and get a job. Why? Because they're not having that many people doing the hiring. And the end result is we have kids graduating from college, can't get jobs. The other thing is this. You know, when you look at what's going on in Ferguson and around the country, one of the reasons why is because there's a huge unemployment rate among black youth. The other thing is, among the African American community, it is higher than we have with in the white community. And the reason why is because one of the reasons is that a lot of these businesses, they're not doing a lot of hiring. And the other thing is this. And one of the other reasons why there was a transformational election is because the American people said no to Obama's amnesty program. They said no to that. Now let's look at that, because one of the things that does is that we've allowed this tidal wave of illegal aliens to come into this country. And what that does is that suppresses the wages of the people at the lower part of the economic ladder. And the end result is their wages have stayed stagnant. So we have a low production of jobs, as well as we have those that have jobs, their wages have not increased. And so what that's done is that's had a huge detrimental and destructive effect on the people at the lower end of the economic ladder. But here's the things that when you talk to your congressman and U.S. senator, here's what the issues that you need to bring up. A, that what are we saying to U.S. citizens? You see, no one wants to ask, how does all this amnesty, I don't care whether you call it amnesty, give them green cards, whatever it is. If the message is, once you're here, you can stay, then guess what? That has a negative impact, and what you've got to ask is, how does it affect current U.S. citizens? Second thing is, how does it affect and what does it say to people who've been waiting in line 2 and 3 and 4 years to come to this country legally? What message do we send to them? Well, I'll tell you what the message is. You were suckers for trying to do this legally. And then finally is this, friends. Right now, we know that there are approximately 1.2 million illegal aliens that are registered to vote. Why do you think that Obama's doing this? They're hoping that to get these people here, then that we can get them registered to vote and then get them voting. Well, can you imagine another 5 million people voting? The majority of them voting for Democrats? Because here's the thing. They're able to do this because the vast majority of other states do not have a photo ID in order to vote. There's only a handful of states that require a photo ID in order to vote. And that is the only way to separate those that are here legally and those that are not. That is the only way to separate those who are U.S. citizens and those who are not. Because the fact of the matter is that it's very easy to register to vote. In fact, listen, any one of you could right now, from your home, you could register 10, 15, 20 people right out of your home. Just give them a little bit different name. You could use the same last name, use a little bit different name, register to vote, and in essence, send that in, and then you get your voter registration card, and if all you need is your voter registration card, you could go during early voting, go around the Metroplex, and that's the way it is in most states. You can go and you can go and in essence vote using a different photo ID. I mean, not a photo ID, a different registered voter card, and you could vote 5, 10, 15, 20 people. And that's what's going on. That's why True the Vote, an organization down in Houston, they were uncovering stuff like this. And that's why, guess what? That was one of the organizations, Catherine Engelbrecht, was one of the organizations that the Obama administration went after with the IRS, the FBI, the Environmental Protection Agency, not the Environmental Protection Agency, but the OSHA, and other federal organizations were sent to investigate her. Why? Because she was uncovering all this stuff, and they didn't like it. So you call your representative and you tell them, look, this is what the American people were shouting on November the 4th. First of all, we want the repeal of Obamacare. Second thing is that we're saying no to Obama's amnesty. And the other thing is, now, let's move to holding our locally elected officials. I'm talking about the state of Texas and going down to the State House. Because one of the things is, have you seen this, my friends? This is a book. It's called the Joe Strauss Record, because right now there is a race going on for the speaker's position. Why is that important? Because the Speaker decides who's going to be the committee chairs of every committee. He has huge influence on who's going to get on each committee. And right now, here is the basic rule as far as the House is concerned. Any committee chair has the power of life and death over any bill that comes through their committee. Doesn't matter whether everybody else on the committee wants it or not. The committee chair can decide that we either won't have a hearing or we won't have a vote on that bill to get it allowed to get out of committee. And then we have a calendars committee that can also do the same thing. Where if you had one particular committee chair let a bill out, then you have the calendars committee that can hold it in the calendars committee and never allow it to get to the floor. But a lot of some of my colleagues have been saying Joe Straus is a conservative. Joe Straus is pro-life. Well, let me show you this, my friends. This is giving you the voting record of Joe Straus when he was in the House. Okay, when it was before he became Speaker, here's the achievement record he had. Heritage Alliance, 51%. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, 71%. Eagle Forum. Now, notice I'm giving you all these conservative organizations. They gave him a 58% in the 2005 session, and in the 2007 session, a 68%. How about Young Conservatives of Texas? 73% and a 62%. How about Texas Right to Life? Well, they gave him a 50%. Now, here's the thing. Notice this one here. This one is 100%. It is not a conservative organization. NARAL is the National Abortion Rights Action League. The National Abortion Rights Action League. They gave him a 100% rating. Then Joe Straus became Speaker in 2009. And guess what? In 2009, what happened was there were two big bills that were being considered by the Texas House. The first one was the photo ID bill. We had the votes to pass that bill. Now, at the time, the votes between Republicans and Democrats was close. They had 76 Republicans, 74 Democrats. Every Republican would have voted for the photo ID bill. The other thing is, another big bill was the sonogram bill. The sonogram bill was a bill that said, before you have an abortion, you must be given the opportunity to see a sonogram. And the reason for that is this, my friends. The sonogram, we have seen from all the pregnancy centers that are around the state, that if a woman sees a sonogram and hears the heartbeat of her unborn child, you will have women who are pro-abortion minded who will then choose to carry that baby to life, to birth. Okay? They will choose to carry that baby to term. And so we know it's having a huge impact on the abortion industry. And in fact, what they've seen, we finally passed that bill in 2011. And they found that it reduced the abortion rate between 10 and 15%. Okay? So, here's the thing. If that bill had passed in 2009, we would have saved somewhere between 7 to 10,000 babies had that bill passed in 2009. But that bill was kept in committee. It was never allowed to get to the floor. And here's the thing. Again, we had 76 Republicans. You might have had one Republican that voted against it, but guess what? We had about 4 Democrats that voted for it when they finally passed the photo ID bill, the sonogram bill in 2011. So when they passed the sonogram bill in 2011, there were Republicans and Democrats that voted for the bill. And so it would have also passed. But it wasn't allowed to get to the floor. And then in 2011, 17 Republicans voted against or did not vote for Joe Straus. And the end result was those that voted for him said, we better get those two bills out of the House, because if we don't, there's going to be big targets on our back. But after he killed the sonogram bill in 2009, Planned Parenthood gave Joe Straus an award. And here's what they said in giving him the award. This was the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood. His name is Jeffrey Horns, and he acknowledged and thanked Joe Straus for his tireless effort. Right here. For his tireless effort. Thank you, Joe Straus. Now, let me ask you this. You know, there are people today that are saying Joe Straus is pro-life. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever known any other pro-lifer that got 100% voting record from NARAL? Do you know any other pro-lifer that got an award from Planned Parenthood? You know what? I've been in politics since 1978. I have never seen a person who was pro-life who got an award from Planned Parenthood nor had 100% NARAL voting record. It just isn't happening. And here's the thing. Some people may say, well, Bill, he had this transformation. Well, it's a funny thing. When did he have the transformation? Well, he gets through the 2009 session, and all of a sudden he's got to run for re-election as Speaker. Now, wait a minute. Oh, whoa, I'm going to run for Speaker where we're going to try and get other people to vote for me again, and I'm going to have 100% NARAL voting record, and I'm going to have a big award from Planned Parenthood. So guess what? He runs around the state telling people, well, I'm as pro-life as Ronald Reagan. Now, here's the deal. Again, that was after the 11 session. He gets reelected in 13. They do pass the sonogram bill in 13. In 2011. But then in 2013, guess what? Not one pro-life bill in 2013 made it to the floor. Now you may say, now wait a minute, Bill, didn't we pass that big pro-life bill? Yes, my friends. You know why we got that big pro-life bill? Because Rick Perry put it on the call during a special session. And when we have special sessions, all we have is a handful of bills. And so it's hard to cover up a major piece of legislation by simply ignoring it. So guess what happened? That bill was allowed to get to the floor, and we were allowed to vote on it. And guess what? When we voted on that bill, it got out. But notice again, it was during a special session. Not one pro-life bill made it out during the regular session. Let me give you a few other ones that didn't make it out of committee. Do you know right now we're one of the few states in the nation that allows a doctor or a hospital to put a do not resuscitate order in your records without your knowledge or permission? Let me repeat that. Right now, a hospital or a doctor can put a do not resuscitate order in your patient records without your knowledge or permission. So, we had a bill that would have corrected that. What happened to that one? Didn't get out of committee. But there was a Senate bill that came over, it was SB 303, that said, we're going to notify you if we do put a do not resuscitate order in your record. Here's what the bill did. It said, if we put a do not resuscitate order in your record, notice this, they're not asking your permission to put it in. They do it, and then they say, we have put a do not resuscitate order in your records. Or what the law said is, we will make a good faith effort to notify you. Oh, well, thank you very much. They're going to make a good faith effort to do that. But they don't get my permission. Let me ask you this, friend. Why don't we do like a lot of other states do, and that is, if you want to put a do not resuscitate order in my records? Why don't you ask for my written permission before you're able to do it? Isn't that a novel idea? That you're going to have to get my written permission to do it. And I believe it needs to be in big, bold letters, because if you've been in the hospital lately, you remember you probably signed about 20 or 30 pieces of paper. And, this, sign here, and most people don't read it. So it needs to be big and bold. You are signing a do not resuscitate order. Is that what you want? But the SB 303 said, we're going to notify you of that. Oh, thank you very much. Let me ask you this. How about a Religious Freedom Restoration Act? Well, after we've seen these attacks on religious freedom, do you think we could have used a Religious Freedom Restoration Act? That'd have been nice, but you know what? That was another bill that never got out of committee. How about American law for American courts? Oh, excuse me, that one never made it out of committee. How about border securities? How about like E-Verify? Getting rid of sanctuary cities? How about getting rid of the bill or getting rid of the law that says that if you're here illegally, you can get in-state tuition if you've just been here 3 years and graduated from Texas high school? Can we get rid of that? Well, that didn't make it out of committee. In fact, that didn't even have a hearing. Eliminate the franchise tax. How about a real Second Amendment right, like campus carry? That was put in committee, never got out of committee. How about budget spending reforms, like limit the growth of government to population plus inflation? Never got out of committee. How about school choice? Well, that one never made it out of committee. In fact, if you get this little booklet, they have a great, it talked about all the stifling of conservatives and conservative reforms that went on. And here's where we start. Notice all the bills here never got out of committee, never got to the floor. Notice there's a lot of bills here. Never got to the floor. And here's the thing. A lot of these were transformational pieces of legislation, like eliminating the franchise tax or at least reducing it. Now, I will say this. They did get a 1.2 where they put 1.2 million, 1.2 billion, 1.2 billion into lowering the effect of the franchise tax. But in essence, it's something we'd done previously, and all we did was kind of carry that forward. Now, here's the thing. Why don't we get some other reforms like zero-based budgeting? Here's the thing. Those are pieces of legislation that would have transformational effects on the people of Texas. Had a huge impact on the economy. Never got it out of committee. Here's the thing you got to ask yourself, friends. If you vote for Joe Straus and we have another session first of all, is there any reason to expect that we'd have a different session than what we had last session in 2013? Is there any reason to expect that we would have a different session, a different type of session, if he's the leader? I haven't heard anybody say that would be. So if we have the same type of session that we did last session, and you vote for Joe Straus, who owns that? Whose responsibility is that? That is the responsibility of those who vote for Joe Straus. So that is exactly why I'm voting for Scott Turner, because Scott Turner is a true conservative. Scott Turner is pro-life. And the other thing is this. Scott Turner is committed to these principles. He's committed to having strong measures that have a huge positive impact on the economy of the state. He's committed to allowing the E-Verify bill to get to the floor, the sanctuary city bill to get to the floor. He believes that we ought to have pieces of legislation like that will transformationally affect this state. So there you have the choice, my friends. There are going to be people who say, "Well, Bill, we don't think he has the votes to do it." Let me ask you this: when you stand for principle, do you say, "Well, I'll stand for principle if we have the votes behind us, if we can win," or do you stand for principle? My friends, it takes courage to stand for principle. So I believe that talk to your state representative, ask them who they're voting for Speaker of the House. And a conservative choice is Scott Turner. God bless you. See you next week.